Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the quiet solace of his humble abode, a burst of laughter permeated the air, reverberating off the walls of the small living room. The sound echoed with a malicious gleam, shattering the silence. As the young man, his brown locks swaying, leaned closer to the laptop's glow, the corners of his lips curled upward in a sardonic grin.
"Well, well, Miss Abby,"
he chortled, his words oozing with scorn.
3 months, they say. A fleeting romance and a record-breaking feat, it seems.
Unbeknownst to him, a loud thud disturbed the apartment's tranquility, followed by echoing steps, heralding an oncoming presence. Abigail appeared in the doorway, arms crossed over her chest, her expression thunderous. "Shut up, Quinn! Not everyone wants to hear your commentary!" she snapped. Quinn swiveled in his chair, the worn blue jeans and gray hoodie he wore making him look even more casual about her distress. "I'm just saying, maybe next time pick someone who doesn't still live with his parents, or someone who knows how to use a washing machine." He chuckled.
"Remember when he turned all your white clothes pink?"
"At least I've had relationships," Abigail shot back. "When was the last time you even went on a date?" Quinn's smile faltered slightly.
"That's by choice. I'm focused on my career." "Yeah, right. Streaming video games to 12 followers is really taking off for you." The barb hit its mark, and Quinn's face hardened. "Whatever. At least I don't keep falling for guys who can't commit to anything more serious than their fantasy football leagues." Abigail's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You know what your problem is, Quinn? You have absolutely no empathy, zero understanding of other people's feelings." She turned on her heel, muttering, "Someone needs to teach you a lesson." Quinn rolled his eyes and returned to his laptop, unaware of the wheels turning in his sister's mind. 3 days later, Quinn's phone pinged with an email notification. Sprawled on the couch, in the same blue jeans and a different gray hoodie, he opened it absently. "Confirmation, Femininity workshop. Payment received. Class begins Monday." Quinn blinked, read it again, then sat up straight. What the hell? He scrolled through the email, confusion mounting with each line. "Dear participant, thank you for enrolling in our 6-week Femininity workshop. We're excited to help you discover and develop your feminine potential through our comprehensive program covering everything from fashion and beauty to etiquette and self-expression." Quinn stormed into the kitchen where Abigail was making tea, waving his phone. "Very funny. What is this?" Abigail looked up, the picture of innocence except for the slight curl at the corner of her mouth. "Oh, did you get your confirmation email? I was wondering when that would come through." "You signed me up for a femininity workshop." His voice cracked on the last words. "You seem to know so much about relationships and how women should act," she replied, stirring her tea. "I thought you might benefit from some formal education." Quinn's face flushed. "Cancel it." "Can't. No refunds, and it was expensive. $600 to be exact." $600? Quinn's jaw dropped. "Are you insane? I'm not going to some class to learn how to be a woman." Abigail shrugged. "Well, that money's gone either way, but I'm sure you can email them and explain that you'd rather waste $600 than learn something new." Quinn glared at her, scrolling through the email again, hoping to find a loophole. "This is ridiculous. I'm not doing this." "Fine," Abigail said, walking past him. "I'll just add it to what you already owe me for covering your half of the rent last month."
Quinn's shoulders slumped. He was already behind on payments, and his streaming channel wasn't bringing in nearly enough to cover his expenses. This is blackmail. This is consequences, Abigail corrected. It starts Monday at 6 p.m. Don't be late. Monday arrived with grim inevitability. Quinn stood outside a modest building, checking the address again against the email. He'd dragged himself here in his usual attire, baggy blue jeans, gray hoodie, and worn sneakers, hoping that his appearance alone would get him ejected from the class. With a deep breath, he pushed open the door and stepped into a well-lit reception area. A woman with a clipboard looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm, here for the—" He couldn't bring himself to say it. The woman waited, one eyebrow raised.
"The Femininity workshop,"
he finally muttered. Her eyes scanned down her list. "Name?" "Quinn Thomas."
"Ah, yes.
"You're the last to arrive." She checked his name off.
"Room 3, down the hall to the left."
Quinn hesitated.
"Look, there's been a mistake. My sister signed me up as a joke."
The woman's expression didn't change. "We have a strict no-refund policy, as stated in the enrollment agreement." "I know, but—" "Room 3, she repeated, already looking down at her papers. "Ms. Valentina doesn't appreciate tardiness." Defeated, Quinn trudged down the hallway, pausing outside the door marked 3. Taking another deep breath, he pushed it open. The room contained about 10 people seated in a semicircle, facing a striking woman in her 40s with impeccable posture. All heads turned toward him as he entered. To his surprise, not everyone appeared female. There were a couple of people who, like him, seemed out of place. "You must be Quinn," the woman at the front said. She wore a deep purple dress that somehow made her look both approachable and intimidating. "I'm Miss Valentina. Please, take a seat." Quinn shuffled to the only empty chair, acutely aware of the curious gazes following him. "As I was saying," Ms. Valentina continued, "this workshop isn't about conforming to societal expectations. It's about discovering aspects of femininity that resonate with you, whatever your reasons for being here." She glanced meaningfully at Quinn, who sank lower in his chair. "Now, let's begin with introductions. I'd like each of you to share your name and what you hope to gain from our time together." One by one, the participants spoke. There was Maria, who wanted to feel more confident, Devin, who was exploring gender expression, Jessie, who needed a confidence boost after a divorce. Then it was Quinn's turn.
"I'm Quinn," he mumbled, "and I'm here because my sister is evil."
A few chuckles rippled through the room. Ms. Valentina's expression remained neutral. "Care to elaborate?" Quinn sighed. "She signed me up as revenge because I made fun of her breakup. I don't want to be here."
"I see."
Ms. Valentina tapped her chin. "Well, Quinn, since you're here regardless, perhaps you could approach this as an opportunity to understand your sister better. After all, empathy is a quality often associated with femininity." Quinn wanted to argue, but found himself nodding instead.
"Excellent. Now, for our first exercise."
The next 2 hours were a blur of discussions about societal expectations, personal experiences, and an introduction to the curriculum. Quinn participated minimally, offering monosyllabic responses when directly addressed. As the class ended, Quinn bolted for the door, only to be stopped by Ms. Valentina's voice. "Quinn, a moment, please." He froze, then turned reluctantly. She approached, her heels clicking softly on the floor. I understand this isn't your choice, but I do have a strict participation policy. Attendance alone isn't enough.
What does that mean?
He asked warily.
It means that next week, I expect you to come prepared to engage meaningfully. This isn't punishment. It's an opportunity to step outside your comfort zone.
Quinn wanted to protest, but remembered Abigail's comment about the rent.
Fine,
he muttered. Ms. Valentina smiled. Good. For next week, please bring a notebook and an open mind. And perhaps, she glanced at his hoodie, something other than that to wear. Quinn left feeling like he'd been outmaneuvered. Back at the apartment, Abigail was waiting with an eager expression.
How was it?
She asked, struggling to hide her amusement.
It was fine,
Quinn replied flatly, heading straight for his room. Just fine? What did you learn? Quinn paused at his door.
I learned my sister is even more vengeful than I thought.
He closed the door before she could respond. Alone in his room, Quinn pulled out the syllabus they'd been given. 6 weeks of what appeared to be progressive steps toward embracing femininity. Week 1 had been introduction and theory. Week 2 would focus on movement and posture. With a groan, he tossed the paper aside and flopped onto his bed. The following Monday, Quinn arrived at the workshop in clean jeans and a button-up shirt instead of his hoodie. It was the bare minimum change, but he hoped it would satisfy Ms. Valentina's requirements. The session focused on how people carried themselves. Ms. Valentina demonstrated different walking styles, explaining how posture communicated confidence, approachability, or authority. Now I'd like everyone to try walking across the room with awareness of your posture, she instructed. One by one, participants crossed the floor while Ms. Valentina offered gentle corrections. When Quinn's turn came, he walked stiffly, hands shoved in his pockets. Quinn, you're hunching, Ms. Valentina observed. Try rolling your shoulders back, and perhaps remove your hands from your pockets. Reluctantly, Quinn adjusted his posture and tried again. Better, she nodded. But you're still moving from your shoulders. Try initiating movement from your hips instead. Quinn's face burned as he attempted to follow her instructions, acutely aware of the other participants watching. After several attempts, Ms. Valentina seemed satisfied enough to move on. The second half of the class involved practicing sitting and standing gracefully. Quinn fumbled through these exercises, his movements stiff and uncomfortable.
Don't worry,
Devin whispered to him during one particularly awkward moment.
It gets easier. First week was rough for me, too.
Quinn managed a small smile of gratitude. As the session ended, Ms. Valentina distributed handouts. Next week, we'll be discussing fashion and personal style. Please come prepared to discuss what you believe your style might be. Quinn stared at the handout, which included questions about color preferences, style icons, and comfort levels with various clothing types.
Do we have to actually wear anything different?
He asked, hesitantly. Ms. Valentina considered him.
Not yet, but I encourage experimentation. The more you participate, the more you'll gain from this experience.
On the way home, Quinn found himself unconsciously adjusting his posture on the bus, rolling his shoulders back, as Ms. Valentina had instructed. It did feel less tense than his usual slouch. The apartment was empty when he returned. He sat at his desk, staring at the handout. After a moment's hesitation, he opened his laptop and began researching men's fashion, telling himself it was the safest option. An hour later, he'd fallen down a rabbit hole, looking at various styles and wondering what might actually suit him. His usual attire was more about blending in than expressing anything about himself. By the time week 3 rolled around, Quinn had spent more time on the handout than he'd care to admit. He arrived wearing dark jeans and a fitted navy shirt, a small step up from his previous outfit. Ms. Valentina noticed immediately. "Nice choice, Quinn. That color suits you." The class began with a discussion about how clothing choices reflected and affected self-perception. Ms. Valentina brought out racks of clothing in various styles and sizes. "Today, I encourage everyone to experiment. Try items you wouldn't normally consider. This is a safe space for exploration." The other participants eagerly approached the racks. Quinn hung back, watching as they selected items and disappeared behind a folding screen to try them on. Devon emerged wearing a flowing skirt and fitted top, twirling experimentally. The joy on their face was evident. "Quinn?" Ms. Valentina approached quietly. "Would you like to try something?" "I don't think... Remember, participation is required," she said gently. "It doesn't have to be dramatic. Perhaps just a different style of shirt?" Quinn reluctantly approached the rack, fingering the fabrics without enthusiasm. Nothing appealed until his hand brushed against something soft. He pulled it out. A light pink cardigan, simple and understated. "Interesting choice," Ms. Valentina commented. "Would you like to try it on?" Before he could overthink it, Quinn nodded. He slipped it on over his navy shirt, surprised by how comfortable it felt. "The color complements your brown hair nicely," Ms. Valentina observed. "How does it feel?" Quinn examined his reflection in the full-length mirror. The cardigan softened his appearance, making him look less angular. "It's not terrible," he admitted. Emboldened by this small success, Quinn browsed the rack again. His eyes landed on a floral sundress with a modest cut. Something about the pattern drew him in, blue and white flowers against a soft background. Before he could talk himself out of it, he grabbed the dress and ducked behind the screen. His heart pounded as he slipped off his jeans and shirt, replacing them with the dress. The fabric settled around him, lighter than anything he'd worn before. Taking a deep breath, Quinn stepped out. The room didn't fall silent. No one gasped. Most people were too focused on their own explorations to notice him. Ms. Valentina approached, her expression warm but not overly enthusiastic, as if trying not to spook him. "That's quite a leap from the cardigan." Quinn's hands fidgeted with the material. "I just wanted to try it." "The cut flatters your build," she observed. "How does it make you feel?" Quinn considered the question seriously. "Exposed," he said finally. "But not in a bad way. Just different." Ms. Valentina nodded. "Fashion is often about managing that line between exposure and protection. Try walking around a bit, see how it moves with you." Quinn took a tentative lap around the room, conscious of the dress swishing around his legs. It was strange, but not unpleasant. By the end of the class, he'd gotten comfortable enough to sit and converse normally while wearing it. As everyone changed back into their original clothes, Quinn found himself reluctant to remove the dress. He finally did, carefully hanging it back on the rack. "You can borrow items if you'd like to experiment at home," Ms. Valentina told the class. "Just sign them out at the front desk." Quinn hesitated, then approached the desk after most others had left. Could I borrow the dress and cardigan?" he asked quietly. The receptionist smiled without judgment. "Of course. Just return them next week." Quinn carried the items home in a discreet bag, his mind racing. In his room, he hung them in his closet behind his hoodies where Abigail wouldn't see them. That night, after Abigail had gone to bed, Quinn took out the dress again. He put it on, standing before his mirror for a long time. Something about his reflection seemed more authentic than usual, though he couldn't articulate why. He slept poorly, his dreams filled with walking runways in various outfits, while faceless crowds watched. In the morning, he carefully returned the dress to its hiding place, not ready to examine what this meant. Week 4's topic was makeup and hair, which Quinn approached with trepidation. The class gathered around stations equipped with mirrors and various products. "Today's about enhancing natural features," Ms. Valentina explained. "We'll start with skincare, then move to basic makeup techniques." Quinn watched the demonstrations with growing interest. The transformation of one participant, from tired-looking to vibrant with just a few products, was particularly striking. When it came time to practice, Quinn cautiously applied moisturizer, then experimented with concealer on the dark circles under his eyes. The difference was subtle but noticeable. "May I?" Ms. Valentina asked, gesturing to the mascara. Quinn hesitated, then nodded. She applied it with a light hand. "Blink a few times. There. See how it opens up your eyes?" Quinn stared at his reflection. His brown eyes, usually unremarkable, suddenly seemed more expressive. "Your lashes are naturally long," she commented. "Many would be envious." By the end of the session, Quinn had learned to apply basic makeup that enhanced without being obvious. He purchased a few items to practice at home, telling himself it was just to fulfill the participation requirement. That night, alone in his bathroom, Quinn recreated what he'd learned. The person in the mirror looked both familiar and new, still him, but softer somehow, more aligned with how he felt inside. For week 5's session on vocal expression and communication, Quinn arrived wearing his navy shirt again, but paired it with the pink cardigan. He'd applied a touch of concealer and mascara, subtle enough that most wouldn't notice, but it gave him confidence. Ms. Valentina smiled approvingly, but didn't comment on his appearance. The class focused on tone, pitch, and communication styles. They practiced speaking from different parts of their vocal range, finding comfortable variations that felt authentic. "Remember," Ms. Valentina emphasized, "this isn't about changing who you are. It's about expanding your expressive range." Quinn discovered he could softly modulate his voice without it feeling forced. The exercises were interesting, almost like voice acting. He found himself engrossed in the techniques, forgetting his initial resistance. After class, Devin approached him. "You seem different, more comfortable." Quinn shrugged. "I guess I'm getting used to it." "It suits you," Devin said simply. "The whole vibe, the cardigan, the voice, everything." The comment stayed with Quinn as he headed home. Did he seem different? He certainly felt different. Less angry, less defensive. There was something freeing about exploring aspects of himself he'd never considered before. At home, Quinn stood before his closet, contemplating the floral dress. After a moment's hesitation, he put it on, along with the cardigan. He applied the makeup techniques he'd learned, then practiced walking and sitting, as Ms. Valentina had taught them. The person in the mirror looked increasingly natural to him, not like he was wearing a costume, but like he was becoming more himself. A knock at his door startled him. "Quinn, do you want dinner?" Abigail called. "Just a minute," he called back, frantically changing back into jeans and a t-shirt, wiping off the makeup. Over dinner, Abigail studied him curiously. You seem different.
Quinn focused on his food.
How so? I don't know. Less combative? The workshop must be doing something right.
Quinn couldn't help a small smile.
Maybe.
Seriously, what do you actually do there? Abigail asked, genuine curiosity replacing her initial schadenfreude. Quinn considered his answer.
It's about self-expression, mostly. Finding authentic ways to present yourself.
Abigail raised an eyebrow. And that's helpful? Surprisingly, yes. Quinn twirled pasta around his fork.
I've been thinking about what you said, about my lack of empathy. You might have been right.
Abigail's eyes widened slightly. That's unexpectedly self-aware of you. Quinn shrugged. The class encourages reflection. The final week arrived faster than Quinn expected. For the culminating session, Ms. Valentina had announced they would put everything together, appearance, movement, communication, in what she called a personal presentation. Quinn spent days deciding what to wear. The dress felt too forward for public transport, but returning to his old style felt like regression. Finally, he settled on something new, a cream blouse he'd purchased during a solo shopping trip and a navy pencil skirt that hugged his hips. He paired them with low heels he'd been practicing walking in at home. Looking in the mirror, Quinn hardly recognized himself. The brown hair that had once flopped carelessly across his forehead was now styled softly around his face. The makeup, still subtle but skillfully applied, enhanced his features without overpower them. The outfit accentuated a figure he'd never appreciated before. For the first time, the name Quinn felt incomplete. During one late-night internet search, he'd come across the name Sayershe, meaning freedom. It resonated deeply, and in private moments he'd tried it on like another piece of clothing. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed a coat long enough to cover the outfit and slipped out before Abigail could see her. At the workshop, the atmosphere was celebratory. Participants showed off their personal styles, many looking dramatically different from their first day. When Quinn entered, several people did a double take.
You look amazing!
Devon exclaimed. Ms. Valentina approached, her expression one of quiet pride. Quinn, what a transformation.
Actually,
Quinn said softly, the voice techniques making the words flow more smoothly.
I've been thinking of going by Sayershe.
Ms. Valentina nodded.
It suits you. Would you like us to use that name today?
Sayershe nodded, something loosening in her chest at the simple acceptance. The personal presentations began, each participant walking across the room, introducing themselves, and sharing what they'd learned. When Sayershe's turn came, she walked confidently, her heels clicking rhythmically on the floor. I'm Sayershe, she said, her voice clear. 6 weeks ago, I came here against my will, determined to learn nothing. Instead, I discovered parts of myself I'd been denying. This journey has taught me that authenticity isn't about meeting others' expectations. It's about honoring your own truth. The room applauded warmly. Ms. Valentina stepped forward and presented each participant with a small certificate of completion. This isn't an ending, she told them. It's a beginning. Take what you've learned and continue growing. As the workshop concluded, participants exchanged contact information and hugs. Sayershe found herself genuinely sad to see it end. You know we have advanced workshops, Ms. Valentina mentioned as Sayershe was leaving. If you're interested. Sayershe smiled. I think I might be. Outside, the evening air felt fresh against her face. She walked differently now, not just because of the heels,
but because she carried herself with newfound confidence. At home, she took a deep breath before unlocking the door. Abigail was in the living room and looked up as she entered. "Where have you—" Abigail's words died as she took in Saoirse's appearance. "Quinn? I go by Saoirse now," she said quietly. "It means freedom." Abigail stared, speechless for a moment. "The workshop did this?" "No," Saoirse replied. "The workshop just helped me see what was already there." She moved to sit across from her sister, automatically adjusting her skirt as she'd been taught. "Your revenge backfired spectacularly." A range of emotions crossed Abigail's face. Shock, confusion, and, finally, a reluctant smile. "So it seems. Is this permanent?" "Yes." Saoirse smoothed her skirt. "This is who I am, Abby. Who I've been all along, just hiding under hoodies and sarcasm." Abigail studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Saoirse." She tested the name. "It's pretty. Suits you better than Quinn, actually." Relief washed over Saoirse. "Thank you." "So," Abigail leaned forward, "tell me everything. And I mean everything." As Saoirse recounted the past 6 weeks, she realized the journey had come full circle. What began as punishment had become liberation. The workshop hadn't changed her. It had simply provided the space and tools for her to discover herself. In the months that followed, Saoirse continued her transformation, inside and out. She advanced through additional workshops, built a new wardrobe piece by piece, and gradually came out to friends and coworkers. Most were surprised but supportive, and those who weren't faded naturally from her life. Her relationship with Abigail deepened as well. The siblings found new common ground, shopping together and sharing makeup tips. The mockery that had once defined their interactions was replaced by genuine support. One evening, as they shared wine on the balcony, Abigail raised her glass. "To the best $600 I ever spent." Saoirse laughed and clinked glasses. "To revenge plans that backfire in the best possible way." She gazed out at the city lights, feeling the gentle weight of her earrings and the soft fabric of her dress against her skin. The woman reflected in the window glass looked back with clear eyes and a confident smile. No longer hiding, no longer afraid. What had begun as a punishment had revealed her true self, hidden all these years beneath layers of denial. The journey ahead would have challenges, but Saoirse would face them authentically, walking confidently in her heels, her brown hair catching the light as she moved forward into her new life.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!